Hello, everyone, and welcome to, get this wire out of the way, The Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought I'd do another thrift store haul. So I think this one would be the fourth episode of the thrift store haul. I ended up finding a bunch of stuff this time. I seem to find a lot in the thrift stores around the city that I live in, so they're usually pretty fruitful. I went to, I think, only 3 places this time and found a bunch of stuff. I found 4 books. Put them over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 CDs and 3 Blu-rays, 2 DVDs and 1 Steelbook DVD. All right. And it wasn't very expensive at all. So I thought maybe I'd do the books first, and then we'll go on from there. So first book I'll show is this one, which is the Gita again. Now, if you remember from a previous video, if you've watched all my videos, I already had that book in hardcover, right? So, but is it more difficult to read a hardcover, or is it more difficult to read a paperback? This paperback is in perfect condition. It's a translation from it's hard to say, but let's try it again. Okay, see if I brutalize it as badly as I did last time. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, all right, which is that guy right there. So in North America, well, I can't say for the States, but I'm assuming, since the States and Canada, when it comes to books and everything, are so related. But in Canada, this edition of the Gita is the most popular, all right? It comes in a whole bunch of different, it comes in a paperback like this, comes in a hardcover, comes in a more beautiful cover with a lot of beautiful images in it, paintings and stuff. But basically, I figure, okay, so I explained this book last time, but I was a bit confused on what was what, so I figured maybe I'd give you a more comprehensive explanation of where this book comes from. So this book, so there's 2 major epic poems or epics in the Hindu religion, or the Indian Hindu religion, okay? And I'm going to brutalize their names, but I wrote them down so that I could. The first is called the Ramayana, all right? And the second one is called the Mahabharata. Mahabharata, if I'm pronouncing it right. Every Hindu person that's watching this video, just block your ears, because I probably brutalized it, right? So, but anyway, so of those 2 epics, the second one, or the Mahabharata, in that book, there's a bunch of books, but in the 6th book of that epic poem, all right, the 6th book is called the Bhishma Parva, all right? So it's the 6th book in this large epic poem. And in that 6th book, chapters 23 to 40 is where you find the Gita. And basically the Gita tells of a war between 2 families, all right? The Pandavas family and the Kauravas family, all right? Now, the Pandavaras family has 5 brothers to it, and one of the brothers is a guy named Arjuna, all right? So Arjuna is on the battlefield fighting this other family, but he considers them brothers or his kin or whatever, right? And he sits down on the battlefield and he starts wondering whether this war is worth the cost, because he knows that a large number of people are going to die, all of his kin, all of his brothers, right? So he sits down and he gets a visit from Krishna, and Krishna and him have a conversation. It's 700 lines, and it's basically one of the core areas of the Hindu belief, all right? And what Krishna tries to convince Arjuna to do is to get up and fight because it's a righteous war, and it's his what they call it? Because it's his warrior duty to hold up the Dharma. All right, and the Dharma is basically the duty, um, the duty of a person, um, and it's resulted through karma or unselfish action. All right, so he needs to step out of his own skin and realize that his his uh, his fight is righteous, and he needs to get out of his own head, um, and get back to his destiny, I guess you could say, right? And so this is what Krishna and him discuss, and through that 700 lines, is a majority part of the Hindu religion. It goes into philosophy, it goes into right and wrong, ethics, and a whole bunch of other, high-headed ideas, right? So basically, it doesn't just pertain to what's going on the battlefield. It actually pertains to all of life, right? So if you want to learn about the Hindu religion, all right, this is one of the books you need to read, okay? So this book is one of the more important books in the Hindu religion. So if you're curious about world religion, and maybe you're brought up Christian, maybe you're brought up, maybe your parents were atheists, agnostics, or so on and so forth, and you want to learn about all the different religions of the world, which I have a kernel of curiosity in me for that as well. This is one of the books that you need to read if you want to learn about Hinduism, okay? And it's called the Bhagavad Gita, or just the Gita. Everybody calls it the Gita, all right? So that's the first book. All right, so I'm glad I wrote that stuff down. All right, so next up is one of Austria's greatest poets. He actually wrote a novel as well, but he's more known for his poetry. Now, his poetry is in German, and this is an English translation by Stephen Mitchell, and supposedly it's an extremely good um, translation of Rilke's work. All right, so this guy was born, in the later 1800s and died in the early 1900s, and during that time he wrote a bunch of poetry that has garnered him the reputation of being the greatest poet of the 20th century. All right, one of the greatest writers, and probably the greatest poet writer of the 20th century. So in this book, you get a large amount of his works. Not all of his works, but the main two that everybody looks for to read first, all right, is the Duino Elegies and the Sonnets of Orpheus, all right? And both of those are in this book. So I found this book for $4, all right? So this is a modern library book, all right? So I don't collect the modern library. The only books I really keep are the Franklin Library. I keep leather-bound versions or the Folio Society books, which are those hardcover books with the slip cases. I've shown you them in previous videos. Of those three, the Franklin Library, the other one that escapes me, which was their direct competition, and the Folio Society. I'll collect books that I've read in those because there's so many of those leather-bound issues, and they're expensive, right? So I only get the ones that, I'll read a book and I'm impressed by it. And if it's in one of the if there's a leather-bound edition, I'll go look for it and try to find it. All right. And I also collect the Everyman Library and the original modern library, not these ones, because these ones aren't numbered, but the original modern library, the more paperback sized hardcover books are all numbered, right? And so is the Everyman Library, they're small paperback size hardcover books. I collect those as well, right? So those are the ones I really keep. So these ones I'll buy. If I haven't read the book, maybe I'll pick it up and give it a shot to read, right? But mostly I if it's $4, it's way under worth a lot more than that. This is probably worth about $10 used, right? So I'll pick it up and I'll resell it. If I read it and I don't like it, I'll resell it. If I read it and I do like it, then I'll look for a leather-bound edition. I'll keep this one until I find a leather-bound edition of Rilke's works, right? So, anyway, but these things are extremely collectible. These in the Everyman libraries are very collectible books. People like to collect these books, so you need to keep them in good condition. So, what do you do with a book? Remember, pretty much every one of my um, videos, if I have movies or whatever, I always show you putting them in plastic wrap. Well, well, the main thing that gets damaged in a book is its dust jacket. Okay, see this dust jacket? It gets wrecked over time. All right, and its main purpose when they first started being put out on books, because books originally didn't have any of these, right? But then they were put out in paper to protect the book. All right. But what people usually did when they got home with the book after they've traveled with it, they'll just toss this, right? Because it's just like like a paper bag that you get your groceries in or whatever, right? So, it may have some imprint on it or whatever, but basically, this is what you wanted, all right? So, so they would get rid of these. Um, but slowly, what happened was booksellers realized that these could be perfect advertising, you know, uh, advertising vehicles for different products, and they could make some money off of that as well. So a lot of the earlier slipcases would have advertising on it for something on the back or something or whatever, right? And then it would have the name of the book or whatever on the spine or whatever. And then they became more collectible and people kept them more often, but that took a while. But now anybody who's buying books, if they don't have a dust jacket, they usually won't buy it. And if you don't have a dust jacket to a book, depending on how rare that book is, uh, it's worth like 1/10 or 1/20th sometimes the price of a book that comes with a really nice dust jacket. All right, so you need to protect your dust jackets if you're keeping books, and maybe you'll end up reselling. So what I do, all right. So here's the dust jacket. I put the book over. I don't know how far down you can see. Let's move these out of the way, and I'll just show you what I do. All right. So what I do is I order from a company, and I order this. If you notice this is like library style inert plastic wrap or whatever. Okay, so it basically will cover the dust jacket. All right, so you basically put it down, you put the dust jacket in, you cut it, and then you fold it, and then it protects the dust jacket. It's like a plastic cover to the dust jacket, and it's acid free, so it doesn't damage your dust jacket over time. So this is what I do with it. All right, so I'll take it. All right. Actually, I'm not going to do it on camera. It's very simple to figure out. All right. Basically, you put a plastic wrap around it. All right. And and it protects the dust jacket. So I'll do that after. I don't want to waste your guys' time on video. And plus, I would probably need to bend the camera down to do it. And the camera that I have is on my phone, if you haven't noticed that. And it is facing towards me, but the actual screen to the phone is on the other side. So I'm actually looking at the front face camera because the definition of the front face of my camera is a lot clearer than the selfie camera that you get, right? So anyway, so I can't really even see an image of myself while I'm talking. I just know that the camera, I have it set up perfectly so that you can see me, right? So if I move it down to show you my desk while I'm doing that, when I move it back up, I might not put it in in the right position again, right? So anyways, okay, so the next book is Jude the Obscure, which was published back in 1895 by Thomas Hardy, and it's one of his greatest novels, all right? And you got to consider this one of the greatest novels of the 19th century, all right? So, and this is as I mentioned before, you'll notice, this is an Oxford World's Classic version of this book, all right? So, and they're very popular to collect, and they're very popular to read. The Penguin Classics, which are black, and the Everyman library paperbacks, or sorry, the modern library paperbacks, which is part of this group, but it's in paper. It's in trade paper. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll see a few of them. Anyway, so this book is a really good read. If you haven't read it, you should read this book. It's basically a criticism of Christianity and marriage, because the characters in this book go from bad to worse because of religion and because of marriage, right? So if you marry the wrong person, or you don't get married, back in the day of Thomas Hardy, you were ostracized. A lot of bad things can happen to you, and if you have kids out of wedlock, oh my God, uh, you, nobody would communicate with you, right? If you didn't go to church, again, you're ostracized or whatever. So, anyways, that goes through all of this, and the two main characters who are cousins, all right, um, go through hell because of it, and it's an extremely good read. So, if you want to read a book, that isn't recent, a more older book, like I said, this one came out in 1895. But the language is basically simple to read, so you're not getting back into the Shakespeare days where the language becomes a bit complicated and you have to get used to it, right? This is basically modern English, so you can read it easily. And these are so collectible. These books are so collectible; they're fun. Um, Now I have read this book, so I'll probably end up reselling it. All right, and the last book is a big book, which most art books are, and it's Renoir's landscape. His paintings, his landscape paintings from 1865 to 1883, and basically it's a beautiful book. It goes through a bunch of his um, paintings, and then it'll have explanatory notes and history and so on and so forth on the opposite page, right? So, and it goes through pretty much all of them, right? So it's a very beautiful book. It's an art book, it's a coffee table style book, but it has good information in it. And I love art, and paintings by Renoir are selling in the tens of millions of dollars. So do you think you and me will ever get one? No. Probably the closest we will ever do is see maybe one in a museum or in a book like this, right? So that's why when I find them, and this book was $3. So when I find them uh, in a nice edition, I'll look through it, I'll read it, and then, like I said, I don't collect this book. I don't. I only collect a certain. It keeps my library at a reasonable size. Otherwise, I mean, I used to have a library of over between 2,000 and 3,000 books, and it covered half the house, right? So you have to be reasonable on what you keep, right? So I'll look through this, I'll read it, and then I'll probably resell it. But for $3, you can't go wrong. All right, so let's do the CDs next, okay? Or no, let's do the movies next, okay? So the first movie, I'll do the Steelbook, and the Steelbook is a DVD of Fantastic Four #2, which is The Rise of the Silver Surfer. Was this movie any good to you? I thought it was okay. I mean, it's not going to blow anybody's hats off or anything, but I quite enjoyed it. Now I have this on DVD. I don't have it on Blu-ray yet, um, but now I have a Steelbook DVD instead of a regular DVD. So it's got really nice artwork on it. That's the good thing about Steelbooks, is they have really nice artwork on it. What the bad thing about Steelbooks are, now this one doesn't have the sleeve on the inside, so I don't know if it came with one, or some of them don't, right? But it has the two DVDs. Um, it has the one DVD, which is a two-sided DVD with the widescreen on one and the full screen on the other, and then the second DVD full of extra features, right? So it's a nice addition, and it's basically new. There's no scratches or anything on it. That's why I picked it up. All right. Um, and the first thing you do when you get one of these, you need to protect it, and you need to do it straight away. All right, because it's going to get damaged just being in a stack or against other movies or whatever. So you just put it in a plastic bag, and you don't have to worry about it. The plastic bag is what gets rubbed. The plastic bag is what gets scratched. But plastic doesn't really scratch, right? It just kind of slides off. So I really, I enjoy this movie because of the Silver Surfer, basically. All right, this guy right there. And being my age, you grew up with the Silver Surfer, and the Silver Surfer was one of the coolest Marvel characters out there. I mean, he was like the coolest, probably. Many people would argue that he was the coolest. Batman and the Silver Surfer, right? Um, so the Silver Surfer was basically what, an envoy of Galactus, where he would go surfing around the universe looking for planets for Galactus to consume or destroy, right? And he ends up going to Earth. I mean, he became his envoy because Galactus arrived at his home planet and was going to destroy it, and he gave up himself to save his planet, and he turned into the Silver Surfer, and now he goes around surfing the universe looking for proper planets for Galactus to destroy. So he ends up on Earth, and that's what this film is about. He comes to Earth for Galactus, and he sets up the world to be devoured by Galactus, and the Fantastic Four have to, stop him. But what they actually do is convince him, remind him of his humanity, and then he fights against Galactus with the Fantastic Four instead of working for him, right? So it's a good film. Um, it's not a great film, but you can't argue some of its coolness. You know what I mean? Like, man, that was cool. Like some of the scenes with Silver Surfer in it were extremely good. All right, and um, it's all CGI or anything, but if you read any of the Fantastic Four, I think Silver Surfer came out in 1966, and episode issue number 50. I think it was 50, maybe 49. Anyways, it was 50 or below, um, and everybody loved the Silver Surfer, even though he's a good guy, but he's acting like the bad guy. You know what I mean? But everybody thought he was like super cool, right? So, um, and that comic book, maybe it was 48. I think maybe 50 or 48, 49, 47, somewhere in the 40s or the early 50s. That comic book is worth a lot of money in mint condition. So if you ever find that in the secondary market at a reasonable price, pick it up, man, because the Silver Surfer is like one of the best Marvel characters, and it was so much fun going to the theater and seeing him come alive on film, even though he's a CGI guy, right? So, but anyway, so I picked this up. It's a nice steelbook. All right, so that's the first. Next up after that is a film starring Gene Hackman and Robert Redford, and it's part of the Criterion collection. I found this for $2. Do you believe it? Now it's a DVD. It's not a Blu-ray, but at $2 for this at a thrift store. All right, and it a lot of times when you find a Criterion in a thrift store, it's missing the booklet, but kaboom, there it is. There's the booklet. All right, and the DVD is in perfect condition. Right, it looks like nobody even watched this. Right, they opened it, maybe they watched it once, and now they got rid of their library, and now they got rid of a great film. Now this film came out. I wrote it down so I wouldn't remember. 1969, and it's before Robert Redford became like the heartthrob and one of the great 70s and 80s actors, right? Where he went into directing as well. But I mean, he was one of those heartthrob actors like Brad Pitt back in the 70s, right? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, all the way up to like The Natural, right? So he was in so many movies, and people would go see him a lot because he just had that magnetism on film, right? And this was one of his earlier films. Now it's directed by what was his uh, Michael Ritchie. Now I don't know a lot about Michael Ritchie, so I'd have to look that up. But um, for $2, you can't go wrong with the Criterion. And I don't have this Criterion in Blu-ray or DVD, so it's good I can add it to my collection. And only have see that's why I have difficulty. Like I just bought 3 Blu-rays of Bergman films. If you watch the last video that I did, which is episode 4 of a private sale, episode 4. I found this guy was selling 3 Bergman films, Blu-ray films in the Criterion collection. I got them for $15 each. So $2 is a lot better than 15, even if this is a DVD, right? But you can find quality cinema like boutique labels, especially Criterion's. Not so much, the English labels like the Masters of Cinema or Eureka Films, but you can find these ones, and you can find the Kino Lorber ones in the thrift shops occasionally, and you can get them for like under $3, right? So I have a large difficulty trying to find these at much higher prices, or prices that people put on, on a Facebook Marketplace where they're selling Blu-rays for like $35. It's just ridiculous. But anyways, so I got the last three Criterions for $15 each, and I got this one for two. So that's a good deal, right? So basically, this film is about skiing, and um, if you watch a previous video, I talked about the film Black Christmas, the Canadian film directed by Bob Clark, where you walk around as the killer, looking through the eyes of the killer. The camera is basically the eyes of the killer, so you're not actually a witness to the action that's going on film. You're actually the participant. You're like in the mind of the killer. Well, this uses a similar thing, where a lot of the shots you're in the eyes of the mind, um, looking outwards at the course that you're going down. So they did some really cool shots in this film. Richie did, of you going down the course like you're the skier yourself, right? So what is that called? First person filming. So and then it'll break away and it'll show the skier going down or whatever. But then it'll break in, and then you'll be looking through the eyes of the skier going down the hill, which is kind of cool. Anyway, so uh, a Criterion for $2. Can't go wrong with that, right? Especially since it had its booklet as well, right? Now this again is it's a clear case. It's not a black case, so they're harder to find. So I will put this in a bag as well. It's hard to find clear cases. It's easy to find the black cases. They're so I mean I have like maybe 100 of them right behind the camera, right? So, but the white cases are more difficult to find. Um, so I protect the clear or the clear white cases. If you look at them kind of corner-wise, they look white, but when you look directly at them, they're clear. So um, those are a little bit harder to find, and get used or buy new. They're harder to find new, and they're more expensive. So I put it in a plastic bag, and now it looks new again, right? Okay, so that's Downhill Racer by Michael Ritchie. Michael Ritchie? Yeah, Michael Ritchie. All right. So next up is a film from 1984. All right, and it's a personal uh, choice for me because the film is not very good. Okay, and it's called Blame It on Rio. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It came out in 1984. All right, I don't even know who is. It's directed by Stanley Doonan. All right, and it stars Michael Caine, Joseph Bologna. All right, Valerie Harper, Michelle Johnson, and Demi Moore. A very young. She plays a daughter in this one, right? So basically, Michael Caine, that's his good friend here, and they take their two daughters, all right? So Michael Caine's daughter is Demi Moore, and his daughter, I can't remember his name. What's his name? His name is Joseph Bologna. His daughter is her, all right? And she decides that she has a sexual attraction to him, and then they end up getting involved. And I don't want to be rude or anything, but she is a very nice pair, nice set or whatever. And I was a young man when I saw this film. I mean, young. I mean, not like 10 or anything, but um, I was young when I first saw this film, and they were quite impressive to a young man like myself. So, it's kind of a nostalgia thing that this is one of the first films I ever saw, female parts in, right? So, this one has an impression like a lot of people with Fast Times at Ridgemont High, right? With that film, the Hello Brad scene where she comes out of the pool. Um, Everybody remembers that if they were growing up in the 80s, right? So this one kind of was the same thing for me. And this one, the person who bought it and left it, donated it to a thrift store, didn't even open it. So it's new. Basically new. I haven't even opened it yet, but I will open it when I watch it. All right. So it's called Blame It on Rio, and it's supposed to be a comedy. It's not super funny or anything, but you have that that sexuality in it that when you were young, it's important, right? So, anyways, okay. So next up, we'll go to the Blu-rays. All right. So I have three Blu-rays. The first one is Steven Spielberg's version of War of the Worlds, and a lot of people panned this film, thinking that it wasn't all that great, but I quite enjoyed it, and I have it on DVD, but I don't have it on Blu-ray yet. So now I have it on Blu-ray. I'll combine the two, like I always do, and I got it for $2. Can't go wrong with that, right? So, it basically about an invasion of aliens into the world, and Tom Cruise and his daughter have got to survive it, and so it's action packed like Spielberg films are, and I don't know, I found it very fun to watch when I was in the theater watching it. I quite enjoyed it, but then after leaving the theater, and you go, yeah, that was a pretty good, damn good movie, and then you start reading about it later on, and everybody's like, uh, wasn't one of Spielberg's best. But come on, Spielberg, man, Spielberg's a very good director, very good popular director, and all of his films are good. I mean, I don't know what you guys were seeing, but I quite enjoyed this film. All right, and now I have it on Blu-ray. All right, so next up is another Blu-ray that I found. All right, take the where it was originally bought sticker off of it. But the person who bought this, all right, was Dances with Wolves. All right, didn't open it either, so it's new, right? So I have I have the DVD of this, but I don't have the Blu-ray. Now I have the Blu-ray, and it's new. And this is probably one of my favorite all-time films. It's one of the greatest films ever made. It's Kevin Costner's best film, and his can go up and down. But I like most of his films. I like the Postman. I enjoyed that film. People panned that film. I enjoyed Waterworld. I really liked Waterworld. People panned that film as well. You know what I mean? But I quite enjoyed it. Um, so I don't know. I kind of like Kevin Costner's films, but this is easily his greatest film. Now, this film was like what, like 4 hours long? It was a long film, but so few, like the Ten Commandments, this one, and a couple others that I've watched that have been really long films, don't feel like they were long films, right? Like you're not moving around in your seat going, when is this film going to get over? This film just grabs a hold of you, and you watch it all the way through, even though it's like, is it four? It's got to be close to 4 hours, right? Anyway, so it's basically he's a soldier in the Union Army, I think in the Union Army, and he um, ends up meeting up with what's the name of the tribe? The tribe is called the Lakota tribe, and he ends up giving up his white ways and becomes part of the Lakota tribe. All right, and he ends up getting involved with a half native, half white woman who's also part of the tribe, right? Or is she half? No, I think she's full white, but um, she was a kid when the natives picked her up, and she's grown up in the tribe or whatever, right? So he joins that tribe, becomes part of that tribe through um, I don't know. He goes through some obstacles, and then uh, he ends up befriending this tribe and becoming this tribe, and then the white people come, and it's all chaos from there, right? But anyway, so where the title is he's called Dances with Wolves in the Lakota um, language, because they name each other by some sort of thing that they see. Like one of the main guys that he talks to is the medicine man of the tribe, and that's Graham Greene. And what was his name? Graham Greene was Kicking Bird. And then he had an enemy inside the tribe who didn't like him because he was white, and that guy was Wind in His Hair, right? So Wind in His Hair Um, but they end up becoming friends in the end. But anyway, so it's a very touching film. It's a very scary film, and it's very, you can see how that this might be kind of realistic in the way that white people treated native people when colonization started, right? So it's quite a powerful film, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch this. But probably mostly everybody that's watching this probably has seen this film at least once, right? All right, so that's, and it's new. Dances with Wolves, all right. And the last Blu-ray was a direct-to-video, but I collect the Disney films, the Disney animated films, and this one is Winnie the Pooh Springtime with Roo, and it was a direct-to-video back in 2004. And it's basically an Easter version, like a Christmas Carol. Remember Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol? Usually it's about Christmas, but this one kind of has that storyline, but it's about Easter rather than Christmas. All right, so um, it's supposed to be pretty good, but of course, it's a direct to video. It's not a theatrical release, but anytime I come across a Disney film on Blu-ray, because I collect all the Blu-rays. I don't really collect the DVDs. I will if it hasn't come out on Blu-ray, but mostly it's all Blu-rays that I collect because, with animation, the difference between a DVD and a Blu-ray is significant, right? Um, but when you're watching a regular film, um, you can watch the DVD and you kind of lose that it's not as clear, let's say, as a Blu-ray. You kind of lose that when you get into the story and you're watching the story. But with animation, with cartoons and that, you never really get away from it when you're watching an unclear animation. It just seems like bad drawing or bad coloring or whatever, right? Of 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 the movie, where it's not that way if it's real live action, right? So the clearer the cartoon can be, the clearer the animation can be, the way better the film is. All right. Um, and so that's why I don't really collect DVDs of animation. I prefer, I mean, if I have to, I will, but I prefer to get it on Blu-ray. And these ones and the Pixar films, I just get them all on Blu-ray, right? So, all right, so those are the movies, and now we just got the CDs. All right, so the first CD is Pulp, his and hers. Pulp was a Britpop band from the 1990s. They actually started back in the 70s and 80s, but they never became popular until this album. So a lot of people, well, I do anyways. I don't know if a lot of other people do, but I consider this to be their first album, even though it's not. It's like their fourth or fifth, but it's kind of like their first album that made them successful. And they're looped in with all the Britpop of the 90s, like Oasis and uh, the Stone Roses and Blur and all those bands. All of those bands were really good. It was like a resurgence of Britpop that hadn't happened since like the 70s back, in the 60s and 70s with like with the Beatles and the Kinks and those guys, right? So anyway, but this is the album that put them on the map in the Britpop version of it, and it gave them a name. And because of this, the next one that they put out, which is Different Class, which is a classic, I would put that in um, when I'm doing my own CD collection. Um, I've been doing my CD library in other videos, and what I'm doing is I'm mentioning when I go through all my CDs, I'll pay particular attention to certain CDs that I would consider the greatest albums of all time, right? In my personal opinion, and Different Class would be one of those. This one almost as good as Different Class, but not up there enough for me to consider it one of the greats. But if you want to listen to Pulp and you want to listen to two of their albums, this one and Different Class are the two that you should listen to. They're very good Britpop albums, and you gotta love Pulp. You gotta love these guys. All right, so it's called His and Hers. And when did it come out? It came out in '94. Yeah. So this one came out in '94, and Different Class came out in '95. So those two albums are the albums that you want to get if you want to listen to Pulp. All right, with Jarvis Cocker singing. All right. So next up is one of the greatest albums of all time. All right, um, and it is Muse's first or second album, I can't remember, and it came out in 2001. And this one kind of grew on people and became more and more. The more you listen to this album, the more you enjoy this album, and it's one of the greatest. It's got to be top 10 of all the albums that have come out since 2000. All right, it's got to be top 10, right? If you've listened to it, you probably know, right? So, um, if you haven't come across this album yet, or you're on Spotify, uh, listen to this album. Tell me what you think, because it's a very good album. All right. So these guys are they're an English like rock band, but they kind of, anyways, it's hard, you know, with film, it's easy to describe. You can describe what's going on in the film and the emotions that are involved, and so on and so forth. And but with music, a lot of times you just got to listen to it. All right, you can talk about the lyrics, but if the music is the important thing, which this band is, all right, um, you just got to listen to the music, and you can just go by suggestions. If you think I have a pretty good opinion on or taste in music, uh, then follow this and pick this up and tell me what you think, because it's one great album. All right, Origin of Symmetry by Muse, that came out in 2001. All right. Okay, so next up is two albums. All right, by the Manic Street Preachers. All right, so Generation Terrorist, which was their first album, and it came out in 1992. And then this one is their fifth album, which is called This Is My Truth, Tell Me Yours. This one came out in 1998. And this band, between this album to this album, became one of the most successful bands of all time. Um, uh, I don't know what else to say about it. They're like pop rock, kind of. They started a scene in they're Welsh, all right. They're from Wales. They started a scene. What was it called? I wrote it down. The Cool Chimera, Kimru, Simru. Anyways, it's basically a resurgence of Welsh music back in the early to mid '90s. All right, so and they were like on the head of it, right? So um, you listen to these guys, you listen to Super Furry Animals, you listen to the Stereophonics in Catatonia. These bands all from Wales, um, and they're kind of part of the Brit pop resurgence, or Great Britain resurgence of music that became popular in the '90s. And these ones are one of the better bands, and they're one of the best Welsh bands ever on the planet. So if you haven't heard of them, these two aren't the two albums that I would consider the greatest of all time or add it to that collection. It would be the Holy Bible that I would probably add. But maybe I think I have the Holy Bible somewhere in there, right? In my own collection. So I'll add these two. I think I may have this one already, but I'm not sure when I picked it up. Anyway, so those are the Manic Street Preachers. All right. So next up is a Canadian band. All right. And this album came out in 2006, and it's their first, and it's called Post Nothing. All right. And they are kind of a mix of like hard rock or classic rock, um, and punk, right? So I really like this type of, I don't know if you'd call it garage type of. It's probably two, but it's mostly just two guys, right? It's two guys, one guy playing the guitar, one guy playing the drums and singing, and it's they have an awesome sound, and it is kind of punkish. And this type of music is my favorite kind of music. This and vocal jazz by females, right? So um, if you've never heard of the Japan Droids, all right, um, Canadian band. So if you want to delve into Canadian music, this band, I would suggest that you give it a shot. All right. And another Canadian band, and these guys are from Guelph, and this album came out, which is their fourth, and it came out in 2008, and it's called Kensington Heights. All right, it's by the Constantines. Now they moved from Guelph to Toronto, and that's when they started to become popular. And they're already established, but this album is one of their better ones. Like I said, I think it was their fourth. Yeah, it was their fourth album. So another band, Canadian band that if you've never heard, pick it up if you like alt rock. A uh, little harder type of rock, right? And they're not bad at all. And last but not least, this is probably one of my all-time favorite albums. So I picked it up even though I had it in my collection because I wanted to introduce it to you, and I didn't want to wait. Although with the B, it might be soon. But anyway, so this album's called Tiger Milk, and it's by Bell and Sebastian, and they're a Scottish pop band, all right. And this album is one of the greatest albums of all time. Now, for some reason, people haven't warmed up to this band as much as you would think they would. Um, but everybody who's ever listened to this that has any in-depth knowledge of music just loves this band. Like critics just love this band, and I tend to agree with them. I came across this album when I was working in a bookstore back in, when did this album come out? Yeah, 1996, back when I was working in a bookstore, and I started, reading a lot, but I'd also put music in the background, and this is one of the albums that I would listen to a lot, um, and it became one of my favorite albums of all time. And the reason why because, okay, so what? Stuart Murdoch is the singer, the main singer of this, and the writer of the lyrics of this band. All right, and um, I don't know what, he has a wicked charm, I guess you could say. His voice is very bubblegumish, right? It's very saccharine. All right, um, it's higher in range, and it's like a very sweet voice, right? So when you're listening to him sing, you think he's going to sing about daffodils, and he's going to sing about the beauty of the world, and it's just like, he has such a beautiful higher toned voice, and it's such a sweet voice. But what he sings about is not that. All right, so you have that juxtaposition of a sweet voice singing about, like, kicking the crutches out of out from under a crippled guy, things like that. You know what I mean? Like, happy that his brother is, uh, being in trouble with his parents because he comes out as gay, and it takes the heat off him for a while. That type of stuff is in this album. It's like sweet tasting medicine with a kick in the nuts, if you know what I mean. I don't know how to describe it. You just got to listen to it, and it just grabbed a hold of me when I listened to it. And I'm going, that juxtaposition is just really hard not to concentrate on. So I'd be reading a book, all right, and then, I'd put this on, and I would just stop reading and just listen to this album, right? So then once it finished, I'd get back to the book that I was reading while I was in the bookstore. It is an amazing album, a very sweet voice, sweet music that, it's like running in a running in a field of daisies, and everything's beautiful. But then you listen to the lyrics, and they're not like that at all. It's a very awesome. It's an awesome album, and I would highly suggest you look for it and find it and pick it up. Tell me what you think if you've listened to it as well. Do you like it, or no? All right. So that's the last album. I would consider this one of the greatest albums of all time, and it would be in my personal list, right? So that's everything that I collected on my thrift store hunt, and that's my haul. And I'm glad you stuck around with me till the end. Did you enjoy some of the stuff? What did you think of some of the movies? Do you like Belle and Sebastian? Do you ever listen to the Constantines? Have you ever seen Blame It on Rio? Have you ever seen this film? Do you think it's worthy of a Criterion inclusion? I'm not sure. And did you like Silver Surfer in this film? Uh, what do you think of Renoir as a painter, right? This is not his main stuff. His main stuff is more Impressionism, isn't it? And nudes, women nudes, right? But this is all of his, landscape painting. So I figured I'd look through it, right? And have you read Jude the Obscure? Or have you ever gotten into Rilke? Or have you read the Gita? Anyways, let me know in the comments what you think. Um, but basically, when I bring you things, I'll point out what's really good, at least in my opinion, and I'll point out stuff that's mediocre, and that way you have kind of like, I mean, a lot of people probably that are going to watch this right now, my channel isn't super popular or anything, but as if it ever does become popular, hopefully I can be a guide, um, to some people who aren't, are just getting into culture, into books, into music, and that kind of thing, and I can guide them through it for them to pick up some stuff and see what they think and give me their opinions on it. It's always fun to do that, right? It's, you know, no man's an island, and a community is better than being solo, right? I'm glad that you participated in this video by watching it, and if you liked it, leave a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to my channel, feel free to do so, and I will be making another video very soon. This is the second one I did today, and I'll probably do another one tomorrow as well. But thank you again. Thank you for watching, and you have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. And bye for now.